Hi everyone. Wow, it's great to see you. So what have you been up to this week? Not partying, I hope, right? So we're back together for Better Safe Than Sorry for our talk show. And I tell you, this week, did you guys hear about the incident with Charlie Sheen and his kids?
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well, apparently Brooke was drinking during her pregnancy with the twins, and Charlie wanted to get the twins seen by a psychologist to make sure that they weren't children at FASD.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
They mentioned how the kids would like attack the dogs and attack the other kids and like even throw feces at people and like be violent with the teachers and everything.
Right. And what people don't understand about these children is it's not that they're innately mean. It's that people around them don't understand that they're easily frustrated and easily upset.
They're not nurturing.
Right. That if the environment isn't nurturing, and obviously I think they were staying with Charlie's first wife, right?
Yeah.
And not that we're going to armchair quarterback it because we don't know this situation, but this is an example of kids I see every day of the week in my practice, you know, because I specialize in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to get to the point where it's so violent. And Daniela, you've had some personal experience too, and you've seen the irritability in the children that you work with.
But they get frustrated very easily, and if you don't provide a nurturing environment, and then they can get more frustrated and they start getting aggressive.
And you know, one of the things I always say is that sleep is an important issue. So these are two little kids, right? They're preschoolers. Who knows if they're getting adequate sleep at night? We know that children with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder have a problem sleeping anyway. And their parents, if they're not regulating them and scheduling them, you know, they're not going to get adequate sleep. And in this other home, and I know that his first wife is trying to do the best she can, but we don't know if she's able to maintain a good schedule. And you know, she has other children too, right? So, and it's not only that, it's a lot of different factors. Their speech and language is often affected. You know, they don't get things that people are trying to tell them, even though you think they do. And you know, cognitively, a lot of times they're impaired, so they're not going to really understand and appreciate what's going on around them as much as others.
Yeah. They can't understand that what they're doing isn't right.
Yeah. And so, male responsibility. How does this father, Charlie Sheen, and his responsibility to his children, how would you say that that's related in a way to any other father advocating for the special needs of their children?
I think that Charlie's definitely doing the right thing and advocating that, hey, you know, I think that my kids need to be evaluated and that they need to go through this, and we need to see if this is an issue or if it's not an issue. And you know, it's his children too, it's not just her children, and I think that it should definitely be a partnership between the two of them to figure out what's best for their kids.
Yeah.
You know, if she's refusing to go through with that, it's definitely something that they need to work out between the two of them. But I think that Charlie's in the right, and that he's being responsible, and that he's taking ownership of his kids and what's best for them.
He sees that his kids are acting out and he knows that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, but she may be embarrassed about it, and I'm sure there are several reasons as to why she doesn't want them to get tested, because she was the one who was drinking. But if there's a problem, you should, if it affects your kids' lives, then you definitely need to put them first and not be selfish and see if they can fix the problem.
So I think that's a big point right there is, okay, it's such a high profile couple, if they do go through and they get evaluated, what happens with her image? Does it come out that, hey...
I think it's also like a big problem that they're right now in a divorce fight, so they're fighting over the custody of the children too. And I've read that Brooke Mueller was afraid that she's not going to get the custody for the children once they find out that they have FASD. So.
Well, okay, when we talk about male responsibility and we talk about the female guilt, it was every bit as much of his problem when she was drinking during the pregnancy, and I'm telling you, he was not one that was known to be a teetotaler. Is that right?
He doesn't have the best reputation.
Well, okay, let's be honest with you. It takes two to have a baby,
Yeah.
does it not?
Yeah.
We're
Last
not
time I checked.
hermaphrodites, right? We're not like the snails that can reproduce on their own. So it takes two to have a baby. And when the guy is drinking, is it more or less likely that she's going to be drinking?
More.
likely.
Yeah.
So do you think it would have been to his advantage if he didn't want anything negative to happen to his children, for him to have abstained?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
So the male responsibility isn't just about parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we co-parent, right? But where does the responsibility begin?
She's the one physically carrying the baby, but he is he helped the baby get there, so he's just as responsible as she is. It just so happens that she's carrying it.
Comes down to leading by example.
Yeah.
He's not drinking, she's less likely to be drinking.
Yeah.
You know, you can't expect her to do one thing and you to do another. It's
Yeah.
partnership. It's both of their babies, and
Mm-hmm.
Just
the guy
because
needs
her
to respect that. And
just because her body is going to be affected more doesn't mean that his actions aren't going to make an impact.
And by drinking when she can't shows a lack of support with the pregnancy. So
Yeah.
he should realize that in order to support her, he should continue to do the things that she also can't. So if she's not allowed to drink or allowed to have raw fish or allowed to do whatever, he should not do those with her.
I know, instead of, sitting there and, hey, you want another 6-pack?
Yeah.
Or, hey, how about I fix you a Long Island iced tea? A Long Island iced tea, by the way, is enough. How many shots does it have in it?
6
Like
shots.
6 shots, okay? So if it takes 4 to 5 drinks or servings, shots, to cause the fetal alcohol syndrome, late 3rd to early 4th week of pregnancy, what would one Long Island iced tea do?
Significant
that.
amount
Do
of
just
damage.
that.
Yeah, it would give you fetal alcohol syndrome in the late 3rd to early 4th week. Would anybody know they're pregnant then?
Mm.
Yeah. So should the guy be aware of this preconceptionally?
Yes.
So that's why they should use contraceptives. And that's not only the girl's part, it's also the guy's part.
So if they're planning a pregnancy or if they're pregnant, they should avoid alcohol. And they should avoid pregnancy if they're using alcohol, right? So if it's not your persuasion to use contraception, that's okay, we get it. There's always the idea of not having sex, right? But if you're married couple, it's the responsibility of 2 people to make these decisions. And I think I'm glad, and I'm not glad that this happened to this family, but I'm glad that this is now out in the media, because there are plenty of other celebrities that I could point to, knowing what I do about FASD, who probably did drink because they are the partying type, and they probably did continue to drink during their pregnancy. And I'm not going to name any names, but you can think of several, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard with like the social pressure that like alcohol is so involved in our interacting with other people that it's kind of sometimes rude to turn down a drink, or like I think we have to do a change there too with the social.
It was named the social drug of choice. Like, why does there have to be a social drug? Why can't you socialize without anything being involved?
Yeah. So social drug of choice, right? That's our social drug of choice. It's becoming more and more marijuana, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at legalization or decriminalization of marijuana, it just happened in our state, right? For over age 21, by the way. But, alcohol really has been our social drug of choice since colonialization, right? So, Nick, this is your first time with us. What would you say that would be important to tell other guys your age that are kind of, may or may not be sexually active? We're not going to go there. But, going out, drinking,
They're
having
not.
a
We
good
have no
time.
issues now.
Well, this is exactly right. We would not be here, would we?
We would not be.
We wouldn't be here celibate, right? But what is it about alcohol and sex would you say that is so alluring, and why do those two often go together?
I would say that, in my own experiences and growing up and the different situations I've seen people be in, large part is you start drinking and it leads to bad decisions. I mean, I know that we always hear our parents say that, hey, if you drink too much, it's going to lead to a bad decision. But a lot of times I feel like we don't always listen to that, and there's a lot of truth in that you start drinking and then you get to a certain point that, and especially if you're younger, you're drinking and you don't realize how much the alcohol is affecting you, because most likely it's all very new to you if you're younger, and you get to a point that you're just going through the emotions of whatever you're doing at the time, and unfortunately things escalate, and then it does lead to unprotected sex at times, and that's never a good idea. I think it comes down to just understanding your limits and understanding that it's not good to put yourself into that situation, and if you are going to put yourself in that situation, then you need to be aware of what you're doing. You can't just blindly go into something. So I would definitely say that it needs to be something that you're aware of, and hopefully you've had those kind of talks with your parents or with your friends, and that you don't find yourself in that predicament.
So for guys going out drinking and there's girls around, what should we, because I know in the focus groups we did at Churchill High School, and in the presentation and following the presentation, we got a lot of feedback saying that it's not just the girls' responsibility. So guys are going out drinking, they're hooking up, no offense, but they are hooking up. Would you call it that?
Yep.
They're trying to get the girls drunk too, so they are easier to catch.
I think a lot of it is on the guys' part, because guys, when they get drunk, not everyone, but there are guys who, when they get drunk, they are very aggressive and persistent, and if they want something, they'll go after it, and if they're drunk, it impairs their judgment, so they don't know that how they're acting is wrong or disrespectful or anything.
And also, they would be more likely to, a girl would be more likely to drink and then go along with the guy.
Yeah, if a girl's drunk too, then the same thing goes for her. Her judgment is impaired, and she's just going along with it, like thinks it's fun.
So I can say that my junior year of high school, there was a prime example of, it was junior prom, and there was a lot of people that unfortunately at the after party alcohol came out. It's funny because I can definitely say I'm very, I was always kind of like, I always was looked down upon because I didn't partake in a lot of the drinking. But the girl was very inebriated in the sense of there was just a challenge going back and forth that, oh, I can drink as much as you can. Physically, I feel like it's impossible. Studies have shown that women metabolize alcohol differently than men do. So they were drinking the same amount of alcohol, and she at that point was just completely gone because she had drank so much alcohol. He had been drinking a lot as well, but it wasn't affecting him in the same way that it was her. Yeah. And it unfortunately, it led to one thing after another that it turned into a situation of she was doing something that she didn't want to be doing. And he was definitely the aggressor in the situation that, the aftermath of that went on for 6 months, that it wasn't something that should have occurred in the first place if the alcohol had not been involved into that situation. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
What I could tell that you had some pretty strong thoughts about that, Sydney.
Yeah, well, I feel like the guy should know in the first place that if the girl wants to challenge him, they're not going to metabolize it the same. Like, he's not that drunk, and he could probably see that this girl is so wasted, and he shouldn't have done things that she didn't want to partake in. Like, he shouldn't have pressured her, and even if she seemed to go along with it, he should know that she's too impaired to fully consent.
I think a big issue with it is that there's a line between what is right and what's wrong, and just being caught up in the moment and having so much fun. Like, if a girl walks up to a guy and is like, I want to have a drinking contest, the guy will be like, oh, this is awesome, this is so much fun, let's do it. But like, he needs to know that that's wrong.
Yeah.
That you need to push away that side, that how it might be fun, but You know, like he said, there are consequences for 6 months.
Yeah.
You think that like one night of fun there aren't going to be any consequences, but
Right.
there are.
Right, so if we go back to the playground model, right? The world is our playground when we're able to drive, right, so to speak, when we're out and we're driving. But when you're on the playground as a little kid, girl comes up, says, I want to have a fist fight with you. Boy is like 2 feet taller than her and, you know, kind of brawny, right? What is he going to do?
Hopefully he's going to say no. And
Yeah. Right, but let's take it back to the playground, right? What
on the
did you
playground, he
learn?
might say yes.
Yeah.
If it,
Okay, well, come on. What are you taught as a boy?
Don't hit a girl.
You're never-
Don't
Yeah.
hit a girl. Never hit a girl. Okay, but yet we call it hit on a girl,
Oh, that's true.
right? When you're at a bar and you're drinking and you're hitting on a girl, and well, didn't your parents tell you not to hit a girl? You know, hit on, and you know she's inebriated. She's, you know, definitely impaired. And I'm not even going to go to the situations where a guy purposefully puts something into the girl's drink, because that is downright, you know, how do you say, illegal, right? In every
Not just
state.
illegal, it's immoral.
It's immoral, it's illegal. But this
Right.
other thing that we're talking about is also immoral and illegal, I believe. This idea that we are allowing our social drug of choice to cause rape. I mean, that's essentially what you're talking about. When a girl says no, she means no. And if she can't put up a fight because she's halfway to the point, the brink of being blacked out, no
it turns
means
into
no.
Date rape as well. And
It's date rape, and I'm sure that's the consequences you're referring to. The 6 months of
Yep.
probably court cases and all of that. Why put people through that? So male responsibility. Anything else you guys can think of? Sarah, you reviewed all of those questionnaires that we got back for the presentation at Churchill.
A lot of the comments about male responsibility was that we need to emphasize that we can't just tell women to protect themselves, that we have to tell men that they're wrong and they are responsible for the actions if they do rape somebody, and not just like protect yourself as a woman and like make sure it doesn't happen. We need to have more emphasis on that it's wrong and it needs to stop, you know, and the men need to stop. That was most of our comments.
I think you brought up a good point of if you're at the bar and you can tell that she's very inebriated, and it's like you don't hit on that girl, or you don't, as a guy, you don't want to be approaching that person, or if you are approaching that person and you do end up talking to them, it's not like, oh, this is great, this is perfect, let's go home. It's, you know, okay, I can tell that you're really not quite all there right now. That's the guy's responsibility at that point to just say no.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, this is perfect. No, it's, this isn't right. And either hopefully she's out with friends, or hopefully you can steer her in the right direction so that somebody else doesn't come along and take advantage of that situation. It's not a situation that you take advantage of. It's a situation that you hopefully diffuse or walk away from.
And that's such a great point. That's what we were saying in our in the presentation, and we had such a limited time that we couldn't get into all the details. But essentially, that if you're out and you see somebody in a bad way, it could be a girl laid out on the floor. You don't pick her up and take her back to your apartment. Like, what is up with that? Like, whoever said that was right? You know?
Be a good Samaritan and take care of her or him, or
You be a good Samaritan.
I think an issue with
Yeah.
that though is how alcohol affects your sex drive. So if a guy is drunk and sees that the girl is drunk, he will most likely be like, I'm gonna go after this.
This is
I'm
easy.
Yeah, this is easy.
easy.
My sex drive is way up. If this is an easy target, I'm gonna go after it. And so guys need to, like, the issue with morals, like, they need to have more morals and realize that just because they're feeling really in the moment that they want to go and have sex with this girl, it's wrong and they can't do it.
Right.
they
So
could-
now, is there another side to this too, in the sense of the girl recognizing that, you know, hey, I can't get to this point, or
Yeah.
this is what happens when I'm consuming this much alcohol. It's like, let's never, on both sides, let's not get to this point. Let's, you know, understand that alcohol does affect you, and it does get to a point that you're blacked out.
And blacked out, and we try to emphasize that. Blacked out does not mean passed out on the floor, because that's unconscious,
Right.
Yeah.
okay? however, the stage before unconscious, and again, I think Daniela says it's the,
Reptilian brain?
it's the something before the blur. The, you know, the brain before the blur is what you call it. Well, it is the blur, really, right? It's the blur that you have, that you know, your eyes are open, your reptilian brain is still on, but your human brain is totally turned off. Like, why get yourself to that point?
The decision-making skills aren't there.
There's no decision-making skills. You're just working on autopilot. It's like the guy, and I've told this story a time or two, and some of you may have heard it, the guy that got hatcheted through the head in the middle of the night, and I won't go into the gory details of how it happened, but he woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, having been hatcheted 16 times, and including through his cortex, totally severed his cortex. He was like a 50-something, 60-something-year-old man. Got up, put on his t-shirt, went downstairs, going down the stairs like this because his leg wasn't working right. Totally unconscious because he didn't have his cortex, right? Only his reptilian brain was active. And he went down, made his coffee, made his toast. As the toast was, you know, cooking, he walked out to his porch like he had done all of these activities for 14 years. And picked up his paper, realized he had locked himself out, took his key, and again, he's bleeding out the yin-yang. I'm talking blood everywhere. This is a crime scene that they could not figure out. They had to bring in a neuroscientist to figure out this crime scene. All right, so he goes in, he unlocks the door, he finds the key in the little window box, opens the door, walks in, collapses from blood loss. And so they're coming in, they're seeing the wife in the bed next to him, nearly dead, having been hatcheted like 6 times in the face. And him collapsed on the front, looking like he had prepared breakfast and done everything he'd done for 50 years, 60 years, or however long, which he had. He had done all those things. Because a lot of what we do is so unconscious.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever driven somewhere in the car and you arrive and you're like, Lordy Lou, you know, I just got to school and I have no idea how I got here, right?
Yeah.
But you haven't been drinking. You haven't had a drop in like 3 years. And you're like, what happened? It's because a lot of our day is so unconsciously programmed. You know, by the way, it's why I tell kids, make your bed every day. If you've made your bed every day until you're 18, you go away to college and you have the spiffiest room, you know, in the dormitory. Because it's, you know, programmed. But there's a lot of what we do, even socially, that's unconscious, right? And you could be walking around in a social situation, you can be looking around, and people think that you're still conscious. And you walk out, and your friends are like, whoa, she must know that guy. All right, well, I'm not going to bother her. And they let you leave with somebody that you have no idea who you're leaving with. Don't get your brain to the point where it's beyond the blur. That's the bottom line, right?
Oh yeah.
Kind of you're part of your own movie, but you can't really act. Like you're not the actor in your own movie. You just kind of watch it in the blur and just gonna happen.
Like a lot of the times in the morning when you wake up and it's early and you're delirious, but you still go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, and walk downstairs and you're like, wait, I feel awake now, but what had just happened before?
And my breath feels minty. I don't remember brushing my teeth. I can't tell you how many times at night, after reading to my kids and all that, I have to stop and think, did I brush my teeth? And I know I did because I do it when they're brushing their teeth. And like even, I have to feel my teeth, they feel pretty clean. I don't know, let me go check my toothbrush. Okay, it's wet, I know I brushed my teeth. Right? Isn't that funny? How so much of what we do is unprogrammed, or is already programmed. But I think it's really cool. We need to program more into our brains, right? More positive things. Why do we have to,
your bed?
like making your bed? There you go. Isn't that a great thought though? How many makes their own bed in the morning?
Now I do.
Now I will. This, right?
No, I actually, there was a commencement speech that a U.S. Navy SEAL gave recently with all the rounds of graduations, and he said that, you know, the #1 thing that he always does is you make your bed, because it's ingrained in your brain, you make it, and on top of that, it's an accomplishment first thing in the morning, and that way you can go through the rest of the day and you continue to feel like, you know, you already did one accomplishment, so the rest of the day is going to be that much more productive, because you can just continue making accomplishments or throughout the day. And then if you had a bad day, you come home and your bed's made. So.
What is his name, by the way? Because I think he was in my practice like 8 years ago, because that's exactly what I tell people. No, I'm telling you. That's exactly the thing I say. I say, okay, if all you do, and kids with ADD, I'll tell them, get up in the morning and make your bed. If you're telling me you want to go down on your medicine, the only way I'm going to go down on it is if you promise me for the next quarter, academically, you will get up every day on your own, your mother will not wake you up, and you will make your bed, right? And you will feel so productive leaving the house. You've already accomplished this huge thing that you'd never done before, and when you come home, you have a tidy room. Even if only the bed is made, it's a big part of the room, right? So, anyway, well, thanks guys for you know, this chat. This has been very helpful, I think, and I think it'll help others to think about moderation and drinking. And, you know, really my preference would be no alcohol at all, and everybody knows that. But if you are going to drink, don't get so drunk that your human brain turns off.
And it's not fun then anymore. So.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't
what's
even remember it.
yeah.
You don't even remember what you do. And, you know, some people think it's funny. I know you said this, Daniela, or maybe it was you, Sarah, to get so drunk you don't remember what you did the next day. Like, what's so fun about that? You could be hitting somebody. You could be, you know, killed.
They do it for the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so stupid, because then when something bad happens, it's like, was that story really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Just a
can't,
just a funny story to tell your friends to seem cool.
and they can't tell the story
So-
themselves, so somebody else tells the story, and
Mhm.
who knows if they have been sober or if they make up a story, so you don't really.
Yeah. People can convince you that you did something that you didn't actually do, because you don't remember whether or not you did it.
How many people say, because I know that I've done this before, in the sense of you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, I don't even remember what happened last night, or cause I've said that before, and I can say that I've never woken up in the morning and not remembered what happened the night before. I've never gotten to that point. But then, you know, I do have friends that'll say that. They'll wake up the next morning and, oh, what happened last night? I'm like, how do you not know what happened last night? Were you really that far gone? But then do other people hear that, and then they're like, oh, well, they drank to the point that they don't even remember. I guess I could do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes, everyone does it, and it becomes more acceptable when it's not acceptable, and some people might even be saying it, and they're not even at that point. It's not.
Yeah. Let me tell you what can happen. And not that we need to take a few more minutes, but I was just in Tennessee on Friday for a death penalty case. It's pre-trial, which means they're trying to decide, are they gonna allow my testimony in and that of a neuropharmacologist. And it turns out that I believe the person who has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder in this particular case was not only impaired from the prenatal period, you know, because he had brain damage. He started drinking and using drugs from age 10 because his father left him with essentially women of the night who were his associates and to babysit. But at that young age 10, he started drinking heavily and using drugs. And the neuropharmacologist showed all the research pointing to his brain being further damaged during those years of pruning, okay? And then the incidents in the case that we're looking at, like what happened, was that and I won't go into the details because I can't, but the things that happened over the course of an evening, you know, when the guy had been drinking heavily, like I'm talking all day long, alcohol for, you know, years. You know, he never, like his blood alcohol, this neuropharmacologist said, never got below 0.1.
Jeez.
Okay? And so on the night in question, girlfriend was driving him around doing things, and I believe his brain was on autopilot. He could not have possibly had a clear thought in his head of his own. And later, as you said, Nick, he confabulated a story of what had happened, which was very different than the two other people who were involved. They told a completely different story because they weren't in their reptilian stage, in their reptilian brain, right? They had their conscience. And so, you know, my feeling is a lot can happen when you don't know what happened the next day. A lot can happen. Somebody can die, okay, which was in this particular case what happened. And, okay, people don't like it that it's a defense. People don't like it. Well, then stop, you know, promoting alcohol to the point that people want to be doing this.
Yeah. Everyone says alcohol isn't an excuse, so don't let it get to the point where it's your only excuse.
Right. Hey, what a great point. Very true. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up. Hopefully we will be back soon. And actually in this next segment, we're going to talk about fetal alcohol syndrome as it relates to the broken cord. So we'll be back.
Bye.
Bye.